Today in class, you're going to get a copy of a chart that will help you organize the quotes that you will use in your essay. The topic, of course, is gun control. And right underneath that, it says to put in your particular position on the topic. So that's essentially what's going to help you write your claim, whether you are pro-gun control or anti-gun control, and being able to know why is pretty important. So that information you would put in that section right about here. In the chart, there's a few things that you will do. First of all, in order to be able to complete the chart, you kind of need to have reasons for why you think what you do. So hopefully you have those established already and can put them in the sections that they belong in. So reason 1, of course, would go here, and then reason 2 and reason 3. And those just go in your own words. So if you recall, each reason needs to be backed up by a minimum of 2 pieces of evidence. So in order to accomplish that, you probably would need to use, or I'm going to require you to at least be able to use 3 different sources. So that doesn't mean that you need to fill in every single box on the chart. It just means that you need to fill in 2 quotes per reason. So you might choose to put let's say this is Article A, this is Article B, and this is Article C. And for reason 1, you might have a quote from Article A and one from Article C. And then for reason 2, maybe you've got a quote from A and one from B. And reason 3, maybe you've got B and C. Or some sort of combination. If you do go ahead and put in a 3rd quote for each one, so say you find 3 quotes for each, that 3rd quote I will give you extra credit for. Yay, extra credit, woohoo! Okay, so just an option for you. Now at the bottom of the worksheet, it says that you need to summarize the ideas in your own words. So that's just right down here. So for column 1, you are going to combine the main point of the 2 quotes that you choose to use and just restate it using your own language in the box below. Okay, so let's just take another look at this with some more examples. Let's take a look at how this would work when you actually use an actual article. Okay, so let's start with the basics first. When you're working with your own chart, always make sure to put your name. So the name of the student for this sample is Stu Dent. Yes, I know, that's cheesy. Anyways, moving on. So for my position on the topic, I have put anti-gun control, and the reason for that is because laws don't stop criminals. Why don't they stop criminals? Well, that's where I need to establish reasons to back that concept up. Remember, the reasons will go in the top box for each column. The reason I have identified in the first column is that guns aren't the problem, it's the lack of defense that is the issue. The first article I'm going to use is called "We Can't Stop Mass Murder." You may remember reading "We Can't Stop Mass Murder" from earlier in the trimester. I'm going to address this article coming from the anti-gun control perspective. In order to do this, let's take a closer look at what the text says. All right, so the blue highlighted section talks about the importance or the main idea of why the author thinks that gun control isn't a good solution for the problems that we have. The author argues that people should spend more time focusing on defending prospective victims, that's potential victims, from prospective or potential attackers. But instead, people are so worried about how do you stop an attacker that it's not helping protect any victims. This quote is a perfect one for me to use to help support the idea that gun control isn't a way to solve the problem. Instead, people need to be able to have the ability to defend themselves from anybody who might try to hurt them. Okay, so now that I have the perfect quote, I'm going to make sure that it goes in the column right underneath my first reason. And also, I'm going to make sure that I include the title of the article that it came from. But that's only one quote, and in order to make my argument valid, I need to be able to support it from more than one source. So I've got to find another quote that shares a similar idea from a different article. For my second source, I'm going to use an article called "The Truth About Guns and Self-Defense." Even though this article is more pro-gun control than anti-gun control, it does have information in it that I can use in my favor. So there's this part in the first paragraph that refers to a study that was done in 1994 by a Florida State University criminologist. His name is Gary Kleck. Anyways, he interviewed 6,000 people, and out of those 6,000 interviews, he came to the conclusion that the use of guns for self-defense was highly important, and it prevented people from being injured by other criminals who might want to use guns against them as a form of attack. So this quote will actually help me support the idea that making sure people have the ability to defend themselves is so much more important than trying to control the criminals and their access to weapons. Now that I have my second quote, I will go ahead and put it in to the column under reason 1 because it's the second quote that supports my first reason. I also want to make sure to include the title of the article that that particular quote came from. So there you have it. Hopefully this chart makes a lot of sense to you. Your goal today is to find at least 2 quotes from 2 different sources to fit in each column that belongs to each reason. And remember, if you would like a little bit extra credit, go ahead and find a third quote that you could use for each column. All right, now that you know what to do, make sure to get your own copy of the graphic organizer for your quotes and get started.